Hello and welcome back to NoBS. Today we return to talking about one of the worst news organizations in the entire world, none other than the New York Times, or the failing New York Times as President Trump would call them. Yes, the New York Times has come up in the news again for a very interesting and new podcast they're launching that's called Nice White Parents. It's very, very offensive. I think it's going to end up being some kind of anti-white thing. It's talking about schools and kids and parents and stuff. And it's basically just them showing their true colors. They really are not fans of white people. They're trying to pander to their liberal audiences who hate us. They have a lot of people in their base who have a lot of anti-white hatred. That's why things like, white fragility come up. They say things like we have white privilege and we're all supremacists or something like that. It's a bunch of baloney. But the point today is New York Times launched this new podcast and I'm just really curious about it. It's just like, why, And here's the launch page. It says, introducing Nice White Parents, a new limited series about building a better school system and what gets in the way. Nice White Parents coming July 30th from Serial Productions, brought to you by the New York Times. So what gets in the way is white parents. I think that's kind of the implication. I believe there's more to it. Looks like there's a story here. This is the person, I believe, recording it. It's just, I don't know. It's looking bad already. Let's see if we could hear it anything.
Nice White Parents is made by Serial Productions and brought to you by the New York Times.
I want to take you back to a time when a group of idealistic people, feeling hopeful about the future, about America, threw themselves into the fight for racial integration. It was 1963, and New York City was planning to build a new school right next to a housing project where the...
So already, it's not the best voice for a podcast. I'm not going to lie to you guys. I'm not one to say. I think I have a pretty good handling of how voiceovers work and stuff here. I'm a professional myself. I'm not the best voice in the world, but she was doing Valley Girl voice. She's sponsored by the New York Times and oh my God. And the other thing I noticed right away, I could already tell they're trying to do a NPR, This Is American Life kind of thing. They do that. You can just tell the way they talk, really soft, this is presented by the New York Times. And then they have that music come in, the production quality is there, but then they have this girl with that voice and then she's already talking about white parents and going back in time. It's a very, very interesting look. And it's just funny to me that they have this title. Can you imagine if this title was Nice Black Parents or Good Brown Parents or something? That would never fly. But for some reason, it's okay to point at white people and try to call us out every single day.
Students would be almost entirely Black and Puerto Rican. But these white parents came in and said, no, don't build it there. Put it closer to the white neighborhood. That way all our kids can go to school together. They were dogged, these white parents, lobbying the city at meetings, writing letters, saying don't build it there. It will inevitably be a segregated school. And we want our kids to mix with Black and Puerto Rican kids from the projects. It's a decade after Brown v. Board of Education, they said. Schools should be integrated.
Schools should be integrated. Okay, so I don't know what the problem is. They want an integrated school and their white parents are lobbying to put it in a place that's in the middle of town. I'm not really sure where this is going. I'm not sure what town it is. I don't know. I could guess. I'm pretty sure this is anti-white parents. I think it's trying to say, oh, the parents are bad. Oh my God. And oh, look here. It does have Ira Glass in it. That's that famous guy from This American Life and NPR and all that stuff. So it's just like I said, it's produced by them, edited by them, in conjunction with these terrible leftists at other places. New York Times is trying to pop up their own version. And already out the gate, I'm just a little confused.
There's an archive filled with letters where the parents wrote things like, we don't want our white children to be part of some, quote, small, white, middle-income clique. The Board of Education agreed, changed the entire plan, and located the building where the white parents wanted it. A few years later, the school finally opened. And then, none of them sent their kids there. I went through this box of letters, called as many parents as I could. Not a single person actually sent their kid to the school.
To the school. Okay, I'm sorry. I can't get past that voice. I guess that's her probably. And I don't know. It's some way to blame white parents for moving a school segregation. I don't know where this is talking about. Is this 60 years ago? Is this a history class? I really don't get it. I do get that they have the title and they're saying nice white parents, like ironically though.
Not one. What happened?
I remember thinking very clearly that, okay, I believe in this, but I don't sort of want to sacrifice my children to it.
No, as I said, I'm a Quaker, and so my kids went to the Quaker school.
But you were a Quaker when you wrote this letter, asking for an integrated
because I believed in it, but...
And I think that we say a lot of things that are politically correct without even realizing that we are not telling exactly how we feel.
So, like I said, it's just a little confusing. I think they're just being really, really subtle. So I'll give them that. Like, this is really like low key. So they're getting in on this whole podcasting thing. These are going to be like long, extended stories. All we're hearing here is a couple-minute clip to give us a taste. And apparently the story is a long time ago, these parents lobbied to move a school and supposedly they didn't send their kids there, blah, blah, blah. Who gives a crap? I mean, it's just some random school in America. I guess if you're into like old history or something like that, that's fun. Good for you. But I have a feeling like this is a New York Times thing pointing at white parents saying, oh, we're trying to be politically correct, but we don't send our kids in, like talking about segregation and just really, really, really being like negative against us. And I find that very interesting because the other thing is like that I just don't get, like, because these are the same liberals that say, oh, white people don't have culture, like white people don't exist, like they're not even like a unified group, except when they want them to be, you know, like now they're lumping us all together and saying, oh, all these white parents are acting like this is how all white people are. But it's like, yeah, which one is it? You know, like you said that there's no white culture and unification, but then they lump us all together. So they kind of want to have it both ways there. And I just want to point out, like, I don't know where this city was, but this is just like one place in America. Like there's thousands of cities, there's thousands of areas, like it's not representing anything that significant. It's just what these guys are trying to do. It's called cherry picking. They find this one story and they blow it up and give it and put all this coverage on it. They spotlight it and try to imply this is like what everyone thinks.
For years, I've been looking for an answer to the question, why don't public schools work better? What is getting in the way of giving each child an equal opportunity, an equal education? But now, I think I've been looking in the wrong places for what's broken in our schools. I think you can't understand what's broken if you don't look here at one of the most powerful forces shaping public education: white parents.
White parents. She really dropped that like it was like a closing line right there. It's about to wrap up this clip too. But yeah, she made it sound like almost like a villain, like, oh, you know, Mario and Luigi have a lot of stuff going on in the Mushroom Kingdom, but things are about to change because of one evil being, Bowser. You know, like we're like the villains in this story. But the truth is, I mean, we're in a majority white country. I mean, there's obviously going to be mostly white parents involved in these schools. And on top of that, I think she's talking about something that happened a long time ago. So the further back in time you go, the more white people were like a larger majority. Like this sort of like integration and this lots of immigration is only like a recent phenomenon. I mean, it seems like it's been a long time for us. It's been happening my entire life. I mean, it's been happening for decades, but you go back just like 30, 40 years, go back to the 60s, like things were way more like majority white. And there's nothing wrong with that. I don't mind, you know, some immigration too and mixing in some new people, but the way they present it, it's just misleading. It's like, yeah, there's a lot of white parents controlling schools in America because there's a lot of white parents in America. I mean, is it really wrong? Like, what's wrong with that? Like, and then the other thing, like I was saying, like, which kind of white parents? I mean, there's lots of different white people here. There's like, you know, descendants from Britain, German descendants, there's Jewish people, there's this kind of religious people, you know, there's Mormons. Like, we're talking about all kinds of different groups in this country with over 300 million people. So I'm really just, I'm just not buying this. I can really just not, you could tell this is like some kind of leftist. This is the chick. You could hear her voice talking about this whole thing. It says it's going to be about, school segregation. stuff about the money, talking about schools. And, I think the thing that really gets me, and this is like another thing that the liberals will never mention, they blame other people for these problems. Like if there's a problem with schools, like let's go right to the schools. Let's talk about the teachers, let's talk about the students and their parents. I mean, parenting is like the number one influence in all children's lives. So if they're going to do good in school, they need to have strong parents who encourage that, who encourage them to do their homework and send them to class on time, give them a proper lunch, help them with projects. Like the parents are more important than other people's parents. Like they're trying to blame other people's parents, like nice white parents were the reason that minority kids aren't learning right. Like, no, I think it might be more to do with the fact that single motherhood is up on a rise on a crazy scale in certain minority communities. Like, I think that is certainly more effective to these kids' education than some other people's parents. And then they want to blame the school system too. It's just blaming other people. It's the blame game. And I just really can't stand it.
From Serial Productions, it's Nice White Parents, a new show about the 60-year relationship between white parents and the public school down the block. I'm Chana Jaffe-Walt. Nice White Parents is coming July 30th, wherever you get your podcasts.
So did you hear her name? Like, she's like, did she mess up saying her name, or is it just like pronounced weird? What's that?
Between white parents and the public school down the block. I'm Chana Jaffe-Walt. Nice White Parents.
I'm Chana Jaffe-Walt. Okay, I don't want to make fun of this person too much. Like, we already got the voice down. We already got this interesting picture. But I think it's worth noting, like, a lot of these kinds of leftists have those, like, long names, like, hyphenated names. They make you say them, like, all, like, fancy way. They just want to be important. They want to be special. They have this thing. They want to be heroes, too. So she's trying to act like, she's saving the world with this story. But it's really just obvious. It's like, okay, 60-year relationship between white parents and public schools down the block. Well, what's wrong with that? Like, what's going on here? Like I said before, I mean, you go back 60 years, there was a lot more white people here. White parents are the adults that are voting and paying taxes. So them having a say in the schools around their neighborhood, I mean, that totally makes sense. I don't get the problem. Like, I don't get why they want to point out white people in this way. Like, it's just negative anti-white racism coming from like biased liberal hacks at the New York Times in conjunction with these kinds of people at This American Life and NPR and all these other podcaster type things. And, it's just silly. And, it's silly. And you could just tell, like, it's coming from someone with a very silly voice and a long microphone that's oddly shaped. But anyway, this is the new thing from the New York Times. I find it rather interesting, pretty darn offensive. I'm sure it would be called offensive if this was like a nice black parents kind of podcast. Like if I made a podcast about black parents and what they've done wrong and blah, 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 like that would be really offensive, obviously. But white people, you're allowed to bash because, I don't know, the liberals hate us and they've made it this widespread. So that's why we got to expose them. We got to talk about the story. Make sure you guys know how biased and terrible this is. And until next time, you have a great day. Comment your thoughts on this story below and also hit the like button if you get a chance. Subscribe if you're new. And until next time, have a good one.